2K gave us a great foundation to work with this year, but default settings are always set to balance the online modes. Today, I'll be sharing the custom settings I use to get the offline game to play like actual NBA basketball. Sometimes when you try to optimize for gameplay, the stats suffer, and when you try to optimize for stats, you end up with a worse gameplay experience. So I spent most of the season optimizing for both, and I think I'm finally able to share what I've been working with. I literally tracked data across the hundreds of full-length games I played this year just to see how they stacked up against real NBA averages. So I wanted to show the averages that I'm getting from this slider set compared to what you would normally see in an NBA game. And if you look at this, everything is checking out great. The free throw attempts leave a little bit of room, leave a little to be desired. But again, I don't want to achieve those in an artificial way. So until I figure that out, this is what it is for now. If you guys have tips on how you get more charge or block animations, let me know, or even more reaching fouls. The most important thing here is offensive rebound rate. When you see the sliders I have, you're going to think, man, his rebounding sliders are out of whack. But this is what it's resulting in, and that is so true to life. The important thing when it comes to rebounding, and I believe some of the shooting fouls, at the end of the game, when you go to the team stats page, you can't trust some of these stats. Like for rebounds, those are a little bit off because they're counting team rebounds. And if you don't know what team rebounds are, I believe it's like, let's say the end of a shot clock, a team takes a shot and misses, but the shot clock went off. Nobody grabbed the rebound. That's just considered a team rebound, but it doesn't actually show up in anyone's stats. That gets logged and tracked and added to the total on the team stats page in 2K, but anywhere else you wouldn't see that. So that's why you might think you're getting great offensive rebounding numbers, but they're actually a little bit off. And when you see my sliders, you'll see why I have them set to the number that I have them set to, because it's resulting in the offensive rebound percentage. This is being compared to the basketball reference data, and it's calculated the same exact way. So this is a very accurate number. So when you get to the shooting fouls or any other fouls, these are taken from real life data from, I believe, the 2020 season. Someone had gone in and tracked what type of fouls are called and how often. There's a lot to be desired here. You'd like to see the personal fouls are kind of, you can control that at the end of games by intentionally fouling and being smart about when you foul. If you are deep into a quarter, let's say the first quarter, and you realize, hey, we've only used one foul this quarter, it might be smart to start taking advantage of some situations before the last 2 minutes. You want to make sure you're using at least 4 fouls a quarter. That stuff you have to be intentional about, and that will help this average a lot. I don't always do that, so that's why this is a little low. But when I'm aware of it, I try to do it as much as I can with players that aren't in foul trouble, like end of bench guys. You want to use up your fouls if you want realistic numbers. Then over the back rarely gets called. Reaching does not get called as much as past years. I don't know why. I don't know how to trigger more of these. If you guys know what changed this year, let me know in the comments. Blocks and charges are all over the place. There's really no consistent way to trigger these that I've found that actually that doesn't break the game for me. So let me know. If you have ideas, let me know. Illegal screens, I've toned this down to a perfect number. Loose balls, they don't happen as much as I would like either. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is go to your control settings, and you're going to want to turn off shot timing and layup timing. I think for sim gameplay, this is just better because there's no risk of never being able to master a player's jump shot, especially since we're playing on Hall of Fame. The timing gets a lot harder, a lot more punishing. So you want to be able to just rely on accurate ratings and badges and not have to worry about being an expert at this game or super skilled at shot timing, because there are just too many players. We don't have enough time to figure all that out. And then you're going to want to go down to box out assist strength and turn this all the way down to 0. Because if you don't, you're going to give yourself an advantage over the computer opponent when it comes to boxing out. And if you want the CPU to get a realistic amount of offensive rebounds, you're going to want to turn this down. Because otherwise, you're getting an unfair advantage over them, and you're usually going to win the rebounding battle. To get these results, we're going to start by setting the difficulty level to Hall of Fame. That's super important because it's the only way to fully unlock the game's defensive IQ and adaptive coaching logic. For the shot success sliders, I turned inside shot up to 54, but close, mid-range, and three-point are up to 58. Layup success stays at 50. Contact shot success is 54, I believe, yes. The reason for all that is you want the inside game to feel like more of a battle and less automatic, especially with the increased amount of offensive rebounds you will see with my slider set. You don't want the game to start feeling like offensive rebound means automatic putback. You don't want it to be that simple. It keeps the points in the paint numbers in check in a realistic way. Next up, when it comes to scoring, is dunks. There are 3 main dunking sliders. There's dunk and traffic frequency. It dictates how frequently you will see players attempt to dunk in traffic. Pretty self-explanatory there. And then dunking success, which I left at the default setting. And then when you go down to skills and attributes, you're going to see dunking ability, which is right here. And I had that down to 36. I like the combination of dunking traffic at 35 and dunking ability at 36. There were way too many dunks happening at the default settings, about double of what you would see in a normal NBA game. So with my settings, you'll see a normal amount of dunks, and they will feel a lot more special when they do activate, because it's usually going to be guys that deserve to be dunking with force, or the guys you would expect to see doing that kind of stuff. And it's not just going to be like, let's say, Zubac is your center and he gets the offensive rebound and every time it's a dunk. Contact dunks in traffic still occur, but it requires players with true special dunking abilities to pull them off consistently. Next up is passing. There's pass accuracy and there's pass speed. So these have been modified for a couple of reasons: to slow down passing speed and to make the ball feel more alive and more prone to turnovers. I turned down pass accuracy to 21. Some players might not like that because it results in more fumbled passes or guys having to chase an errant pass that could have been more on target. But go watch Game 3 of the finals. The Knicks were throwing it over each other's heads at half court, completely uncontested passes, and things were just going out of bounds. These things happen. And it might suck when it happens to you, when you feel like you had a perfect setup happening, but it happens. There are 2 reasons why I like lowering this. It makes it harder to spam the pass button ahead because you have to account for a player's momentum. That's kind of the player's advantage when going up against the CPU. We're able to just make plays ahead of the defense and without factoring in momentum at all. This requires you to factor in momentum. So in that aspect, it grounds the physics of the game to something closer to reality. And number two, the statistical impact it has is it raises the chance for turnovers. You aren't going to see passes go out of bounds 10 times a game. In fact, you'll be lucky to even see if it happens once a game. But there aren't enough turnovers that occur during the game. This helps create more in a realistic way. I turned down ball security to 15. This makes it so that you actually are required to use the protect the ball mechanic when dribbling up court or waiting to pass the ball to a teammate. You have to protect, especially if you're being guarded by a high-level defender. If you don't, you're at risk of getting the ball stolen. And in general, it makes the ball feel more alive when dribbling into traffic or trying to pull off risky moves in the wrong situations. We all watched the finals when Wembanyama turned the ball over by passing it to Castle's back in an NBA Finals game. Bottom line, with these settings, it gives us a higher chance of seeing that happen within the game. I've left body up sensitivity at 50. I know everyone thinks they don't play defense in today's league, but that's simply not true. There are a ton of hand checking, arm checking, and bumping going on. We just saw it in the playoffs, and it happens more than people want to admit for some reason. If you don't believe me, go watch what Jalen Brunson was dealing with. Go watch SGA. Yes, those guys push off and resort to some foul baiting tricks, but watch how the defense is making contact with them. This isn't just, hey, go drive in the lane for free. I mean, you do see that sometimes, but it's usually because of a breakdown in defense. The other advantage I forgot to mention with pass speed is I turned this down to 20. I noticed that the ball was moving so fast on some passes that it was forcing receivers to slide their feet or warp ahead to where the ball was going. So I lowered this. So lowering this setting has decreased that to some degree. Again, it was done to ground the physics of the game and to improve the foot planting. I do think I saw a marginal difference there. Defense, the defense sliders. So driving contact shot frequency just determines how much contact is triggered when driving. These settings were ultimately decided in relation to my foul sliders, so this is where I've landed. I like driving contact at 65 and inside contact at 100. I want the interior to feel congested. This is especially important considering I've increased the amount of offensive rebounds to match real life. The gather and release strength sliders, I'll start with jump shot first just because it's easier to illustrate. So the defense strength gather controls two things. How much your positioning matters during the gather as far as having an impact on the jump shot success. And it also controls how well positioned the CPU defenders are during the gather. The important thing to mention is this does unlock more defensive physicality. If you have gather too low, guys will be floating around, uncommitted to their matchups, and late to respond when the ball is passed to their matchup. But if you have it too high, every player will behave like a lockdown defender. Release strength controls how much the game weighs your closeout attempt when determining if a shot is contested or not. I originally used to set these to the opposite settings. I used to have gather higher than release because my philosophy is that in real life, being in the correct position is more important than whether you closed out or not. Ideally, you're doing both, but positioning can deter a shot or force a player into a really tough contested angle. And a lot of times, closeouts can have almost no effect if a great shooter is able to get a good look. The damage has already been done there. They got a great look and they're going to take the shot. So preventing the good look seemed like the more important factor, but the game just doesn't work as well when I switch these settings. I'm going to try it again in 2K27 because I always like to give ideologies a shot when the new game comes out. But if you place gather strength too high, it becomes very hard to maneuver around the perimeter. And having a high strength release results in harder closeouts, which means an increased chance of drawing jump shooting fouls. I'm not saying you're going to see a huge uptick in jump shooting fouls being called with my slider set. I still haven't figured out a way to get more of those consistently. If you guys have any proven methods that you know work, let me know in the comments below. Help defense strength, I leave this at 50. I will go over my coach slider settings in the future. And that's what I'll use to determine help defense, but we'll discuss that in another video. So agility, I dropped to 45 because I was trying to test out if this will result in more blocking or charging fouls being called. Let's say the defender is slower to slide over and maybe that's why a block is triggered. I can't say for sure if this has had the effect that I want. I'm just going to keep continuing to try that. And for now, I have it at 45. Not much change elsewhere. We went over dunking ability. So I want to talk about the blocking slider. This is specifically fine-tuned for my custom rosters, which I have yet to release. I don't know how well this would translate to default 2K ratings or default 2K rosters, but I think we have enough quantifiable data on blocks that I can go in and adjust everyone's rating in a true-to-life representation. I'll go over my method in a future video. I'm not totally sure if I want to give it away yet, but I probably will, so stay tuned. 77 here gets you accurate block numbers with my rosters. Next up, rebounding. I feel like I was one of the first people to figure this out. I just didn't have a YouTube channel yet, but offensive rebounding in this game does not happen enough. And I don't like turning offensive rebounding all the way up because I feel like that creates some ridiculous skills and it creates some ridiculous animations for guys you wouldn't expect to jump that high or behave that way. 51 keeps it closer to the intended balance, like the way the game came out. I thought turning down defensive rebounding is a better move here, especially for the user. When it comes to the CPU, you're going to want offensive rebounding at 75 and defensive rebounding at 12. This 75 on their offensive rebounding is battling your 2 in defensive rebounding. So their 75 offensive rebounding versus your 2 in defensive rebounding. I know that sounds crazy, but it really isn't. This is resulting in the most realistic offensive rebounding rates I've ever created. And then vice versa, you don't want to kill them easily on the offensive glass. I was having a lot of success doing that, so I had to turn up their defensive rebounding just to create that balance, and this has been perfect so far. Now, as far as tendencies go, you're going to want play passing lanes at 65 for the CPU. Go for on-ball steals at 100. But for the user, now I don't know about you guys, you can either leave it the same as CPU, but I'm not the type of aggressive defender that goes for steals a lot. So I always end up having worse steal stats, like really low steal stats. And in order to get my stats looking more like real life averages, I needed some assistance by my CPU teammates. So I turned up play passing lanes to 77, and this has helped create more fast break opportunities and just better statistical representation. And then for the user, I turned down contest shots to 48, just to give just to add a little bit more difficulty. I left computers contest shots at 50. Now for the foul sliders, every year I go in and I try not to turn these up to 100 right away. I like to give it a shot every year. Like maybe the issue is that I am turning everything up to 100, and that's why I'm never getting the results I want. So every year I do a fresh start, and every year by the end of the year everything ends up being at 100 because there just isn't much we can do about the fouls. Unfortunately, over the back, I've seen 2 the entire year. I've seen 2 calls. Charging fouls, it really feels contextual, and unfortunately, those contextual moments don't happen that frequently, and I wish they would. I'm experimenting with a couple different things. I'm hoping it'll unlock some stuff, but for now, charging 100, blocking 100, reaching 100, there still aren't enough reaching fouls being called. Last year we had better reaching foul numbers, but this year it's kind of gone down. The computer just doesn't reach that often. And then shooting fouls are down to 88. I think this balances really well. Just to be clear, these aren't going to get you the 20 fouls a game that you're going to need. If you're trying to mimic real life, this is not going to get you 20 a game. But I'm not the type of person to try to make up that difference by artificially boosting shooting fouls, because then that just ends up giving you a really annoying gameplay experience. This gets you about 10 a game for each team, and that is actually realistic, 10 to 12. That's realistic. If you were interested in you really want to see 20 fouls a game, turn this up to 100 if you want. But it might get annoying for you. Loose ball foul frequency, 100. Illegal screens, this will get you the perfect amount, about 1 per game for each team.